Hey, so I just wanted to try something a little bit different with this video and put a little bit of an introduction. So if you just want to watch the Queen's Gambit video, I put chapter markers in the description and so you can just easily click ahead. But basically, I started making a video on just chess as a game a few months ago. The video kind of never ended up going anywhere, but I always still had a lot of these different ideas floating around. And so when the Queen's Gambit came out, I binged the whole thing in like a day. It's easily one of my favorite shows that I've seen in a really long time. And so it just felt perfect to kind of come and bring back these different ideas that I had for the chess video and kind of work it together. And so here we have this video that I put together. Part of the other reason I wanted to do these little updates, this is kind of the idea moving forward, is to have these projects that are a little less time intensive and then kind of work on the bigger projects. And so I'm excited to keep working, trying to find a system that works to get more content out regularly. And that is really ultimately my main goal. I also just wanted to tell you guys that I officially am a streamer, apparently, but I've been having a lot of fun on stream, a lot more fun than I thought that I would, and even putting together these Let's Play videos has been a lot more fun than I would have expected either. So if you guys want to go on that journey with me too, that would be really cool, and I would really appreciate anybody following me on Twitch or subscribing to the new gaming channel. But anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video.
What's that game called?
You should be upstairs with the others.
I don't want to be with the others. I want to know what that is you're playing.
It's called chess.
Chess is one of the oldest games in the world that is still played today, with early variations of the game dating as far back as 7th century India, outliving empires, plague, and war, and evolving into the game we know today. 64 squares, 32 pieces, and 2 players each with a simple task, to checkmate their opponent's king. But within those 64 squares is an entire world. Anatoly Karpov described chess as everything: art, science, and sport. Chess is what's known as a game of perfect information, meaning that all information is available to both players simultaneously. It's not like poker with hidden cards or something like a real-time strategy game with fog of war. Every move happens on the board for both players to see, which becomes a core concept to the entire game, as both players must consider not just their own move, but the move of their opponent as well. And as a result, the winner is simply the one that played better chess. Unlike many other board games that use cards or dice, elements of random chance, chess is purely about strategy. I think it's why it's more easily fitting of the categorization of sport than something like, say, Monopoly. When you sit down to play, it's just you and the board. You can't rely on a lucky draw or roll of the die to save you. At the game's higher levels, this means being able to recall tens of thousands of positions, calculating combinations that span multiple moves, with the knowledge that even the smallest inaccuracy can cost you the game.
You resign now.
It's brutal, it's mentally exhausting, and takes incredible endurance to play well.
It's been 5 hours. Perhaps we should adjourn now.
Imagine doing the most intense mental exercise of your life for 5 hours straight, where one single minuscule mistake can end it all. It's the mental equivalent of free solo rock climbing with no safety net to catch you if you fall. It's hard to describe to those who haven't played the feeling of absolute triumph after securing a win, as well as the unfathomable devastation when you lose. Because it's a game that is entirely in your hands. Your fate isn't determined by weather or the roll of a die, it's determined by skill alone. Every win or loss is yours to accept.
It's an entire world of just 64 squares. I can control it, I can dominate it. And it's predictable. So if I get hurt, I only have myself to blame.
The board is perfectly symmetrical. Each player has the exact same pieces to work with, and the alternating sequential move order gives both players equal opportunities to win the game. And due to the fact that it's a game played over a board and not on a field, for example, everyone can have the same chance to succeed. Being taller or stronger or heavier or lighter, being male or female, old or young, none of it affects your abilities as a chess player, something that's rare in the world of competitive sports. When you're dealing with a mostly physical matchup, it's not always easy to know who should be allowed to compete with who, and in some cases it would obviously be unethical. But because chess is pure strategy, the physical component, the actual physical movement of the pieces, is irrelevant. If you can play the game in your mind or through notation, it still counts as playing the game. People with a physical handicap or someone who is blind or deaf would still be able to compete at the same level as everyone else without compromise.
Masa saya main chess, saya rasa tak ada beza sama dengan able people lah. Sebab duduk chess, duduk sama, strategi sama.
In that way, I think chess is arguably the most accessible competitive sport in existence. It's certainly the most fair and also the one with the most potential for diversity, because truly anyone can win it all. While Beth is initially met with judgment and skepticism from those around her when she starts showing interest in chess, her gender certainly playing a factor in that initial bias.
Girls do not play chess.
Everyone quickly changes their tune once they see her play. Because of the natural equity and fairness of chess, there's really no disputing the results. In her first tournament, she defeated every opponent she faced and went on to win first place despite going in without a rating or any prior tournament experience. And the thing is, not a single person present cared about the fact that she was a girl. The only people that ever seem to make a fuss about her gender are the press, who just want a good story, or some of the more conservative people in her life that exist outside of the chess community. Everyone within the community treats her like a rock star, because frankly, she is. But it would be nice to see more sports adopt this sort of mentality. I get that it's not always straightforward, but sometimes it is. And I think the rest of the world of sports could stand to learn something from the openness of chess in general. A sport that brings people from all over the world together in competition, that values sportsmanship and equality. Because as Beth pointed out, in chess,
If I get hurt, I only have myself to blame.
this is true on both sides of the board. At any given position, there are moves that could make or break you. Those who play the game best can find moves no one else ever would. Moves that look like suicide, like throwing away your queen to break open the enemy king's defense. These moves might not be obvious in the heat of the moment, but even a novice at the game can review a successful combination after the fact and understand why it worked. It's like Karpov said, chess is a science. There are a finite amount of possible moves given any current position, and an even fewer amount of winning moves. As such, there's been a lot of study into chess theory, which is essentially a scientific collection of data from previously played games, to break down every possible continuation to find what lines work best for each player. Just like music theory concerns itself with finding which combination of frequencies sound aesthetically pleasing and which do not, chess theory concerns itself with finding combinations of moves that work or don't. The Scholar's Mate, for example, is a common opening trap, and likely one of the first you'll encounter when learning to play the game.
It's called the Scholar's Mate.
It's a 4-move checkmate that happens when white attacks the f7 square with both queen and bishop, provided black fails to adequately defend it. It's a trap that's easy to fall into when you're first learning, but one that's easy to avoid with some practice. The French defense, the Scandinavian, the Sicilian, these are all well-known effective openings to counter the Scholar's Mate. Opening combinations that have been tried and tested for centuries by countless players to ensure their accuracy. There are hundreds of different openings, most of which have multiple variations within, and to be able to succeed on the grand stage means being able to recognize as many of them as possible, because one small inaccuracy can sow the seeds of your own defeat. So the more positions you can recognize, the more of the best moves that you can recall in the moment, the better you'll perform. Becoming good at chess forces you to become something of a scientist, and we see Beth read countless chess books written by iconic players, both real and fictional, to improve her understanding of theory. She's constantly at the board practicing different lines and working through ideas with others to find weaknesses in her strategies and even to learn the specific style of her more skilled opponents to gain an edge. Chess, after all, is a game of math, order, and equity. You move, I move. So any position can be thoroughly analyzed, and we can explore every continuation until we find the winning sequence. Of course, with each new move comes new potential threats, or traps, or weaknesses in your opponent's position that you can exploit, and always more opportunities for variation. The theorized number of potential unique games of chess range from the astronomical to completely unfathomable, with Shannon's numbers suggesting more potential chess games than atoms in the known universe. Even more conservative estimates that eliminate nonsensical moves or repeated positions could never realistically be attained in their entirety.
If it was, let's say, if each player had an average of 3 sensible moves, it would be, say, 3 to the power 80. Yeah, I can tell you that's round about 10 to the 40. So now not as large as the number of atoms in the observable universe, still very large though. If, for example, everyone in the world paired off and they had to play a game of chess every day, it would still take you trillions and trillions of years to play them all. Or if you think about it another way, if we consider all games of chess that have ever been played in history, then that is only a tiny fraction of all the possible games of chess there are to play.
That's why even in a game that's existed for millennia, a game that has reached every part of the globe, and people are still making new discoveries, in every tournament, in every match, there's the possibility and likelihood that we will see a game that's never been played before. The uncharted waters of the mid and end game where theory still has yet to reach. Theory that's collectively been added to by millions of people across dozens of nations and hundreds of years, and we can still be surprised. I think that's where chess becomes art.
Chess isn't always competitive.
No, but you play to win.
Yes, but chess can also be beautiful.
When all of the data and the hard science falls away and you're left with nothing but pure intuition.
So he did not see this move?
I didn't calculate it. I knew that it should win.
I saw you playing very quickly this move
I
over
didn't
the board.
calculate. It's just so several lines. I changed one attacking piece for one defensive piece, but I have enough pieces to make it. Wait.
Still, the proportion is still very
but
difficult.
5-3 is much more dangerous than 7-5.
And Karpov concedes. What an incredible game by Garry Kasparov.
The moves that the greatest chess players can find in those intense moments can reverberate around the world, because finding the best move in those critical positions is like tapping into some inherent higher truth that was always there, if not directly evident. There's this uncanny moment of revelation when it all starts to come together, when you see the intention behind a move.
Do you see it now? Or should we finish this on the board?
Son of a bitch.
It can be truly awe-inspiring and even beautiful. It's why chess has captivated so many over the generations. A brilliant combination is like a beautiful melody or a great story, and every player develops their own unique artistic approach to the game. You can look at a game between two chess legends and discern who's who just by looking at how they play. Tal with his aggressive attacks, Fischer with his pinpoint accuracy, Kasparov and his intense opening preparation. There are games that are immortalized in history, revisited throughout the generations for their sheer beauty, like the opera game, where Paul Morphy gives away 10 pawns worth of material only to deliver a devastating checkmate on d8. This game was played in 1858 and is still taught today because it instills many of chess's greatest lessons, like king safety and development, and it's also a great example of how to give away material advantage to gain a positional one, just like Beth does in her final match with Borgov, which was mostly taken from a real game between Vasily Ivanchuk and Patrick Wolf, but where that game ended in a draw in the show, Beth makes a different move that eventually leads to Borgov's resignation after a beautiful combination that starts with a queen sacrifice.
It's your game.
There's just so much to love about chess. It has a long and rich history steeped in culture and even politics. It's given purpose and passion to countless other people from all walks of life, and for several decades now has even been a viable career option for those good enough to play at a higher level, or for those who at least know it well enough to teach it to others. Its popularity ebbs and flows, but the game will likely be a staple of human culture for as long as there are still humans around to play it, because there's nothing else quite like it. A competitive sport that's rooted in science and art, that allows entry of participants regardless of social or economic background or identity politics, that can teach a lot of valuable lessons about sportsmanship, as you'll rarely see the same sort of toxic gloating that you do in so many other sports. But it also teaches many lessons for life, like the importance of thinking through a plan before execution, looking specifically for any flaws in your idea, that in life you'll have to make difficult decisions, but anything is better than making no decision. It teaches you the value of self-analysis, introspection, and accountability, and consistently frames the concept of loss within questioning like, what could I have done differently, rather than looking for some external force to blame. It reinforces the notion of considering multiple perspectives. It instills proper time management skills, and if nothing else, is at least a great mental exercise. It's a game that rewards diligence rather than luck, intellect rather than genetics, and can be played by virtually anyone, anywhere. And I'm hard-pressed to find any single other game that offers so much for so little. You can play chess for free on your phone or computer, or get a proper chessboard for next to nothing. And if you have internet or a library card, the entire collective wisdom of the chess community is available for you to study completely for free. And it's refreshing to see a show that truly respects the game and its history. They even had multiple experts consult on the show, including the legendary Garry Kasparov himself, to ensure that every board, even the ones we see only for the briefest moment in the background, is still a believable game. I just loved watching The Queen's Gambit from start to finish, and if you're a fan of chess or good television in general, I highly recommend watching it for yourself. And if the show has made you at all interested in learning the game, there is a ton of incredible chess content right here on YouTube, multiple websites where you can learn the game for free, and I think it's something that everyone should at least give a chance at some point in their lives, because it truly is a great game.